All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Errol Spence Jr. reacts on Instagram Live to Terence Crawford and says some pretty harsh words, and some new developments related to the Ugas fight add a little bit of complication to the life of both of them. Let's talk about that in this video. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. We are going to talk about one of the most often talked about topics in boxing, and that is the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford welterweight drama that is going on. I just saw an Instagram that was put up by it was actually a YouTube short about it with an Instagram for Errol Spence Jr. where Errol Spence Jr. pretty much blasts Terence Crawford and says, look, Terence Crawford don't really want that fight. And he says, I will beat that dude's little ass. Trying not to cuss too much on the channel, but you get my point. Seemingly, this was a YouTube short, so the timing of it may be a little off. I'm not sure if it was today or yesterday that it came out. Maybe in response to Terence Crawford talking about how he was out in the ocean looking for Errol Spence Jr. And it seems, generally speaking, that the Terence Crawford's camp, now that they're not with Bob Arum, are being more and more talkative about the Errol Spence Jr.'s fight, and, you know, promoting it a little bit and trying to push for that to happen. Now, something happened yesterday. We did a video on the channel about where everyone has known, and for a while, that Errol Spence Jr. was trying to get the WBA championship fight with Yordenis Ugas. He was supposed to fight Yordenis Ugas last year, but then Manny Pacquiao stepped in and asked to have the fight with Errol Spence Jr. So that fight got postponed between Errol and Ugas. Errol hurts his eye. Ugas fights Pacquiao, beats Pacquiao. Now Yordenis Ugas has the super championship. So Errol and Ugas were trying to fight. The WBA had other plans and asked and have ordered Yordenis Ugas to fight Stanosis, and those guys have now agreed to a fight. So that fight is going to pop off, and Errol Spence Jr. will not be fighting for the WBA super title. Now, I've had a lot of comments in the comment section about what this means for Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. You know, sometimes, man, I think that people that are Terence Crawford fans don't think things through sometimes. They say they're glad that the fight between Terence Crawford and Errol and Yordenis Ugas got shut down because nobody wanted to see that fight. And now Errol Spence Jr. has to fight Terence Crawford, right? Only problem with that is that Terence Crawford just came off of a fight with Sean Porter in which he sold around 130,000 pay-per-views. Because he just proved once again that he is not a major draw, Terence Crawford's money demands for the fight with Errol Spence Jr. are even less likely to happen than they were before. If you remember the conversation that were taking place between Errol, when Errol, by the way, who has said multiple times he wants to fight Terence Crawford. So Terence Crawford has said that he wants to fight Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence has said just as often he wants to fight Terence Crawford. I do not get this make-believe that one guy is ducking another. That is absolutely pure fantasy in my opinion. Both guys want the fight, but there is most definitely an issue in the fight as it regards to who is going to make what and how much money during the fight. Errol Spence Jr. is most definitely the cash cow at 147 pounds, and he is the biggest named fighter financially under the weight, under 160 pounds, including Gervonta Davis, including Teofimo Lopez, Vasily Lomachenko, including Terence Crawford. So if right now, coming off, and this is business conversation, and if you want to blow off business conversation, that's fine. You can act like it doesn't exist. However, it does exist when we're talking about actually getting to see the fights that we want to see. Terence Crawford said that he wants 50-50 with a fight with Errol Spence Jr. When Errol Spence Jr. sells out Cowboy Stadium and does 300,000 pay-per-views against Mikey Garcia, when he fights Sean Porter, and he does 350 or whatever, 335, 350,000 pay-per-views, more than twice as many pay-per-views against the same guy as Terence Crawford did. That organization that surrounds Errol Spence Jr., who was necessary to make the fight, is not going to make that fight for the money that Terence Crawford is asking. So while we say if Errol Spence Jr. does not fight Terence Crawford next, since Yordenis Ugas is not available, then Errol Spence Jr. is ducking. Understand that if Terence Crawford does not take what it is that they offer him, whether that's 40%, whether that's 30%, then Terence Crawford could be considered ducking because he is pricing himself out. If Errol Spence Jr. and I will illustrate this. If Errol Spence Jr. wanted to fight Canelo Alvarez, and he said, look, Canelo said, yeah, I will fight you. I can make 160. Meet me at 160 pounds. And Errol Spence Jr. said, yep, I will fight you. Only thing that I want, though, is it has to be 50-50 in the revenue because I am a star. Canelo Alvarez would more than likely look at Errol Spence Jr. and say, you do 300,000 pay-per-views, 350,000 pay-per-views. I do 800,000 pay-per-views. I do twice the pay-per-view that you do. No, you are not getting 50-50 for this fight. We can do 60-40. We may have to do 70-30. If Errol Spence Jr. refuses to fight Canelo Alvarez for 50, unless he gets 50-50, then Errol Spence Jr. is the one turning down that fight, not Canelo Alvarez. And you can look at it the same way if Terence Crawford was fighting Jaron Boots Ennis. If Terence Crawford says to Jaron Boots Ennis, yes, let's fight for my WBO title, and we're gonna fight on pay-per-view, and Terence Boots Ennis tells Terence Crawford, I want to fight you for 50-50. That's the only way I'm going to have the fight. Terence Crawford could look at Jaron Ennis and say, you've never headlined a card. You've never been on pay-per-view at all. My pay-per-view may not have been that great, but I did get over 100,000 pay-per-views back-to-back. No, you're not. It's not going to be a 50-50. It's going to be 60-40, 70-30, something like that. But if Jaron Ennis turns that down, that is Jaron Ennis's decision to turn that down because he is what you call pricing himself out. And that is a real thing in boxing. We can walk around and call it a duck, call it this, call it that, or whatever, but it's a very, very real situation. So what I was hoping, and here's where my opinion is on it, I was hoping that Errol Spence Jr. could fight Yordenis Ugas. That would make the fight between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. a title for the undisputed title. Once it's a fight for the undisputed title, then Terence Crawford's value goes up because that belt is still there, right? 3 belt champions are not undisputed champions. 4 belt champions are undisputed. So without Errol having that belt from Yordenis Ugas, it actually reduces the value of the fight with Terence Crawford. And put that on top of that Terence Crawford has not had an opportunity to have another fight on pay-per-view that could be produced maybe by the PBC that would allow them to have a successful pay-per-view before the fight. They could get that, they could increase the value of the fight all around and make it more likely that Terence Crawford will accept it. As is, if Errol Spence Jr. wants to fight him, and he said that he has said that he wanted to fight him, if he wants to fight him, then Terence Crawford is probably going to have to take less money than Terence Crawford wants to take. And if it winds up being a situation where Terence Crawford doesn't want a 60-40 split or doesn't want a 70-30 split, then that's going to be on Terence Crawford. Because I guarantee that's what the PBC is going to say, because Terence Crawford is going to want to make a lot of money. Very similar to the stance that Leonard Ellerbe made when he was talking about Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, and the likes of them, where he says, look, we're already making a bunch of money. We're not going to be paying more money on fighters like them who are losing money. It's the same scenario with Terence Crawford. So anyway, I would have thought that Terence Crawford fans would have had enough foresight to understand that the fight getting a 3-belt unification for Terence Crawford for Errol Spence Jr. actually increases the likelihood and the value of a fight with Terence Crawford. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.